I walked into my apartment after a long day, expecting the usual comfort of dropping into my favorite chair, the one right by the window where the afternoon light made every felt dip worth it. But nope. There was Mia, sprawled out like she'd invented that chair and owned the fabric. Her legs kicked up, shoes half off, sprawled like she was royalty in her palace. She didn't even glance up, just kept scrolling on her phone like she wasn't invading someone's personal throne. I cleared my throat. Hey, that's my chair. Mia barely looked up. I know, but it's been empty all day. Figured I'd claim it before it got cold. I couldn't decide if I should laugh or roll my eyes. It struck me then how quickly she stepped in, like she'd walked into a scene she couldn't wait to rewrite. I mean, how does that even happen? You let someone move in because, well, life throws curveballs, and next thing you know, the new roommate is acting like you're the one crashing on their couch? The chair was just the start. When Mia came in, I thought she'd be the nice, chill new roommate who tidied up a bit, watched her share of Netflix without hogging the remote, maybe even made a decent cup of coffee in the mornings. Turns out she had an agenda of her own. It was weird because I barely knew her. We'd only exchanged a handful of texts agreeing on the move-in dates. I thought maybe I'd just missed the memo about her being the type to stake claims so fast. But sitting there, my chair occupied, I realized this was no casual takeover. It was like the apartment was becoming hers by default. And me? I was just the guest in my own home now. Funny, because Mia wasn't exactly the loud, party-everywhere type you'd expect. She was quiet, too quiet sometimes, and way too casual about personal boundaries. I kept wondering what the line between being friendly and being territorial even looked like anymore. That night, as I sat on the barely comfortable couch, okay, never cozy, but it had to do, I wondered how exactly this whole thing got so flipped around so fast. I mean, hadn't roommates always split spaces and spaces evenly? Now it felt like every corner, every cushion, every inch of this place was inching further away from me. You know that feeling when you start questioning if you're just overthinking everything? Maybe I was. Maybe Mia was just making herself at home. But something told me this was going to be a longer, bumpier ride than I expected, and this apartment wasn't going to feel like my place for much longer. So, here's how it unfolded. Jake, my original roommate, had to move out pretty abruptly. I think his company relocated him to some other state, something about a big project, deadlines, and urgent transfer emails that come with that corporate drama. Anyway, that meant I was on the hunt for a new roommate, pronto, because rent wasn't going to pay itself, and my solo budget was not exactly the dream scenario. Enter Mia. I found her through an online listing, and honestly, she seemed like a godsend. Her messages were polite and prompt, no weird requests or red flags. We met up once at the apartment, masked up, socially distant, the whole pandemic dance, and she was refreshingly chill compared to some other people I'd met. She had that neat, casual vibe, clean clothes, friendly smile, and she didn't smell like a mix of pizza and gym socks, which, let's be real, is more than I could say for some potential roommates on those random apartment tours. At first, Mia fit right in. She brought a couple of potted plants with her, arranged neatly by the sunny window, which I had to admit brightened the place up a bit. She was tidy, too. No dishes left in the sink for days, no mysterious stains appearing on the couch. It was almost like she had memorized the roommate handbook or something and was checking off every single "don't be a jerk" box. But I started noticing little things, not huge, just subtle quirks that, looking back, were the first red flags. Mia was sort of, making herself at home with a speed I wasn't quite ready for. Like, within days, she had a designated spot for her mail right in the middle of the kitchen table. Which, okay, may be harmless, except I always took that table as my work zone. And I found myself tiptoeing around her ever-expanding collection of candles and essential oils scattered like a spa exploded in the living room. One evening, I came home to find her mid-rearranging the living room furniture. Picture this, me, standing there with my keys still in hand, watching her push the coffee table an inch to the left, announcing, "This totally opens up the space more, trust me." I blinked and said something like, sure, but what about where it was? She shrugged, grinning like she'd cracked some feng shui code I hadn't heard of. It was weird because Jake was never the type to mess with the setup. The couch faced the TV, the chair sat by the window, and everything was just familiar. But Mia? She treated the apartment like a blank canvas and was wielding the paintbrush like a maestro. It wasn't just the furniture either. Then came the mystery of my missing stuff. At first it was little things, like one day my sneakers disappeared from the shoe rack. After looking everywhere, I found them in the fridge. Yup, the fridge. I still have no idea why. When I asked Mia about it, she just laughed and said, "Oh, I thought they were your emergency ice pack." I wanted to ask if she was joking, but somehow it felt like she wasn't. There was a sudden shift around the kitchen, too. Mia became very vocal about how she used the space. She started monopolizing the fridge and claimed the top shelf, which I'd always reserved for my leftovers. When I tried to tactfully mention it, she shrugged again, saying, Well, you barely cook, so I figured I could use the space. Which, to be fair, wasn't totally false. My cooking skills were admittedly limited, but the tone felt more like a territory mark than an observation. That was another saga. Mia insisted on handling all utilities payments, and while I didn't mind at first, it swiftly morphed into her deciding who paid what, when, and how, without much discussion. She'd nonchalantly tell me the amount due and expect the money right away, like I owed her for not just living there but also for the privilege of breathing her air. Then came the unannounced visitors. One Friday night, I came home to a place that looked more like a college dorm party than my mid-sized city apartment. There were people sprawled across the living room laughing too loudly, music bumping, and Mia was at the center, joyfully playing hostess. Not once did she drop me a text or ask if it was cool. It was like the apartment had morphed overnight into her social club hub, and I'd been voted off the island. I tried to keep my cool, telling myself maybe I was getting too sensitive, that Mia was just trying to make friends and settle in. But honestly, it felt like the ground beneath my ownership of the apartment was shifting. Every familiar corner seemed to be claimed by someone else's taste, preference, or impulse. By the time I went to bed that night, the chair by the window felt more like a prop in someone else's story. And there I was, sitting on the uncomfortable couch again, wondering if I was just imagining things. Maybe Mia really was just making herself at home, or maybe, just maybe, I was living in a narrative I hadn't quite agreed to yet. But one thing was clear, this space, this apartment, was no longer the one I'd known, even if I still lived there day to day. So, things started to spiral, or, well, more like gently cascade into what I could only describe as total territory takeover. It was subtle at first, the kind of thing you don't fully register until you stop and think, wait, when did this all happen? Like the furniture. One evening, I rolled in after work and Mia was mid-decision, measuring the distance between the couch and the TV with a tape measure. Not exaggerating. She was getting serious about it, waving her hands as if composing a symphony of sofa placement. See, if we move this over here, she said, tapping the armrest, it just feels more open. You don't want to feel like you're trapped behind the couch, right? I tried to mask my bafflement. Sure, but what about the flow? The whole walking around without tripping over stuff vibe? Not that our apartment was a labyrinth or anything, but it felt like I walked into a game of Tetris where someone else was calling the shots. She smiled like I was worrying about a detail no one else noticed. Don't worry, I've got this. And she did. Stalking around my own space felt surreal. Then came my stuff. Oh man, the saga of my stuff. My shoes in the fridge really threw me off. I mean, who even thinks, hey, let me pop these kicks in the fridge because why not? I found my plain white sneakers chilling between the milk and a container of leftover Chinese food. When I confronted Mia, expecting some kind of joke or explanation, she just shrugged with that casual grin and said, "They look like they could use a cool down after your run." Seriously, I'm still not sure if she was messing with me or genuinely thought that was normal. It wasn't just the shoes either. I found my headphones tangled in a pile of scarves in the closet one morning, and my toothbrush had somehow migrated from the bathroom counter to the kitchen sink area. I started double-taking at everything I touched, like it was a museum exhibit constantly rearranged by an unseen curator. And the kitchen, oh boy, the kitchen was the real battleground. Mia started staking out prime real estate in the fridge, especially the top shelf. It was her domain, she said. I pointed out, as tactfully as I could, that I'd always kept leftovers there, but she just gave me this nonchalant, "You don't cook much, so you don't really need it." That line stuck with me because, yeah, she was sort of right. My culinary skills are more microwave guru than MasterChef, but still, it wasn't just about the food, it was the way she said it, like I was the guest in my own kitchen. The shared bills thing was another unexpected drama. Mia took over managing the utilities, which I thought would be easy, but it quickly became a power play. She decided who owed what, when to pay, and in what amounts. Sometimes changing amounts without telling me until the last second. I once got a message at midnight demanding an extra $20 for unexpected heating costs. I messaged back asking for a breakdown and got a curt, "Just trust me, okay?" At first, I figured I'd let it slide. It was easier than jumping into a fight, but internally, the frustration bubbled up. It started to feel like I was more of a tenant than a roommate. The tipping point, though? That was the night she hosted what I'll politely call a mini festival without even a heads up. I pulled into the parking lot and saw cars all over the block, loud music thumping through the walls, and people milling about like it was a tailgate party in our living room. I hesitated on the landing, keys in hand, wondering if I should just turn around. Then there was Mia, playing the perfect hostess, breezing past me like she'd just invited the whole neighborhood over. Except me, apparently. I found myself pacing around, trying to spot a friendly face while the chaos swirled. At one point, I even whispered to my own reflection in the hallway mirror, "Is this even my place anymore?" When she finally noticed me, her excuse was, "Oh, I thought you'd be out late, it's just a few friends." Don't worry, we'll keep it down. Right. I wanted to say something, but instead I just nodded, feeling this weird mix of embarrassment, irritation, and disbelief. How did I go from "this is my home" to "oh yeah, that place where Mia throws her parties"? That night, I plopped down on the couch again, the least comfortable spot in the place, and stared at the chair by the window. It was empty, but every time I looked at it, all I could see was Mia's silhouette sprawled out, like a queen in her court. I kept asking myself if I was overreacting. Maybe I was being territorial about what I'd let slip. But the line between sharing and losing control seemed to have blurred into a messy art form that Mia was painting, and I was just watching, stuck on the sidelines. By then, the apartment felt less like my sanctuary and more like a stage where someone else had taken the lead, and I had no idea how to get back in the spotlight. So, after that night, the mini festival / invasion, I knew I had to say something. I couldn't keep sitting on this couch pretending everything was fine while my apartment basically turned into Mia's playground. So one morning, over a lukewarm coffee and with the little nerve I could muster up, I cornered her by the kitchen sink. "I think we need to talk," I started, trying to keep my tone casual, even though inside my heart was doing that weird skipping thing people do when they're about to dive into something uncomfortable. Mia looked up from washing her ever-growing collection of essential oils bottles and gave me this half smile, like she trusted this was going to be super chill. "Sure, what's up?" I took a deep breath. "Look, I get that you're settling in, and that's cool. I really do want us both to feel at home here. But I also feel like maybe the line got a little blurry. Like stuff moving around, the furniture, the fridge territory, the bills thing, and, well, last night's party." She listened, then laughed softly. "Yeah, I guess I went a bit wild with the living room. Sorry about that, I didn't mean to steamroll you. I just figured since Jake left and you were always out, I could make it a bit more me, you know?" I nodded, trying to swallow a mix of relief and lingering frustration. "Yeah, I get it." But it started to feel less like sharing and more like being sidelined. Like, I want to be clear about what we each want and how we live here. Mia's face shifted then. Not defensive, but thoughtful. "Honestly, I thought you were cool with it. You never really pushed back until now." I didn't think it was a big deal. "See, that's the thing," I said. "I'm not the best at bringing up stuff like this. I tend to clam up or just move around quietly. But that doesn't mean I'm okay with losing my space. I just didn't know how to tell you." We talked for a while longer, hashing out boundaries that felt fair. She agreed to keep the party invitations a bit more low-key, or at least check with me first. We made a rule about the fridge shelf, divvying it up like some medieval land grant, with maps and everything. Okay, not really, but it felt diplomatic. And the bills? We decided to split the payments but handle them together, quarterly, instead of Mia dictating the terms solo. For a moment, things actually felt lighter. Like maybe there was a way to coexist without stepping on each other's toes or territory? But then, just as I was imagining a future where my chair by the window was safely mine again, Mia dropped a casual bomb. "Oh, by the way," she said one afternoon, casually scrolling through her phone, "I might be looking for a subletter for a week next month. I have a cousin who wants to stay here while their place is being renovated. Hope that's cool." I blinked. "Wait, you mean someone else staying here while you're gone, like in our apartment?" "Yeah, it's just for a bit. I figured you'd want to know. Thought it might be fine since we're sort of sharing already." That moment felt like a reminder that while boundaries could be discussed, they weren't set in stone, and the line for where my space ended and Mia's world began was still fuzzy. I'm still figuring out where that balance lies. Living with Mia taught me that standing your ground isn't just about drawing lines. You have to keep redrawing them too, as the place evolves. And maybe that's just part of having a roommate. The apartment is part shared, part battleground, part negotiation table, and, occasionally, the scene of some truly weird shoe-related mysteries. So yeah, the chair by the window, still kind of a minefield. But I'm learning to pick my battles and make peace with the idea that home is as much about compromise as it is about control. Will I stay? Will I look for a new place? Well, that's still up in the air. But whatever happens, I know one thing for sure. I'll probably keep a closer eye on where I stash my sneakers.